No one could survive working for the angry billionaire, until the Maid twins did what no one dared. Caleb Blackridge wasn't just hard to deal with. He was pure rage in a tailored suit. At 43, the real estate titan had steel blue eyes that made grown executives lose their train of thought mid-sentence. His anger never cooled. It simmered, then snapped. Constant, targeted, unapologetic. 3 months, 6 private doctors, gone. Not because they were wrong, because they spoke. Dr. Patel suggested stress limits. Caleb screamed until his voice cracked. Dr. Monroe mentioned heart strain. Caleb laughed in his face and told him to get out before security dragged him out. Then came Dr. Halverson. Calm, professional, stupid enough to tell the truth. Mr. Blackridge, your blood pressure is climbing into a danger zone. If you don't... Caleb's hand shot out. He grabbed the crystal paperweight from his desk. Heavy, sharp edges, worth more than most people's cars. He threw it, hard. It missed Dr. Halverson's face by inches, exploded against the wall behind him. Glass shattered everywhere. Tiny shards glittered on the marble floor like frozen rain. The doctor froze. Caleb didn't. "Get out!" he roared. His voice filled the room, bounced off the walls, shook the air itself. "I don't pay you to lecture me. Leave now, or I make sure no hospital in this state hires you again." Dr. Halverson didn't argue. He grabbed his bag. He ran. Everyone in the house recognized that voice. It meant someone was about to lose a job, a reputation, or both. As the office door slammed shut, Caleb slammed his fist into his mahogany desk. The wood didn't crack, but his knuckles did. His blood smeared across the polished surface. He didn't care. He never cared. What Caleb didn't know was that 2 quiet maids downstairs had heard everything. Their names were Alara and Nessa Vale. 14 years old, twins, identical in height, posture, and stillness. They worked silently inside the Blackridge estate, a glass and stone fortress perched above the Pacific coast near Carmel, California. The kind of house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Cold, perfect, empty. Staff turnover was constant here. Fear made people sloppy. They dropped things, forgot orders, quit without notice. But the twins never rushed, never spoke unless needed, always moved together, like shadows. At exactly 2:47 p.m., the house went unnaturally quiet. Not peaceful, held. Caleb stood up too fast. His vision narrowed. The edges went dark. His chest tightened like someone had wrapped steel cables around his ribs and yanked. He grabbed the edge of his desk. His fingers went white. His breathing came hard and shallow. Then the pain hit. Sharp, deep, like something inside him was tearing. He tried to steady himself, failed. The chair tipped over behind him. His knees buckled. At 2:53 p.m., Caleb Blackridge collapsed. His body hit the marble floor with a dull thud. Phones came out immediately. Voices overlapped, panicked, loud. Someone shouted for emergency services. Another ran for the defibrillator mounted on the wall, the one Caleb had insisted on installing after his last physical, the one he swore he'd never need. That's when the twins appeared in the doorway. Alara spoke first, soft, clear, calm. "Please don't touch him." A child's voice, in a Maid uniform. Security hesitated. One of them, Marcus, head of security, stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "Kid, get out of the way. We need to..." Nessa stepped forward. Her eyes were fixed on Caleb's chest. His face was gray. His lips were turning blue. "If you shock him now," she said quietly, "he won't wake up." Someone scoffed. Another cursed. Marcus reached for the defibrillator anyway. Then the heart monitor screamed. Flatline. The sound cut through the room like a knife. Silence swallowed everything. No one moved. Ilara and Nessa knelt beside him. They didn't touch his body. Instead, they placed their palms flat against the marble floor, on either side of him, perfectly symmetrical. They closed their eyes. Their breathing slowed, perfectly matched. No chanting, no drama, no prayers, just stillness. The room held its breath. Security footage later showed nothing unusual. No light, no movement, no measurable force. Just two 14-year-old girls kneeling on a cold floor, and a dying man's between them. 97 seconds passed. It felt like hours. Marcus checked his watch twice. Someone whispered a prayer. Another staff member backed toward the door, ready to run. Then, at 2:55 p.m., the monitor spiked. Beep. 39 beats per minute. Beep, beep. 46. Beep, beep, beep. 60. Caleb sucked in air like it hurt. His chest heaved. His eyes snapped open. Wild. Confused. He looked at the ceiling, then at the faces staring down at him, then at the twins. Paramedics arrived 6 minutes later. By the time they rushed through the door with stretchers and equipment and questions, Caleb Blackridge was alive, breathing, stable, and the two maids were already gone. No one saw them leave. No one knew where they went. But everyone knew what they'd done. They'd brought a dead man back to life. If you've made it this far, chances are you appreciate a powerful story. The kind that pulls you in with real emotion, hidden truths, and lessons that stick with you long after it ends. Now, here's a quick stat. Only 1% of the people who watch and enjoy these stories are actually subscribed. If you're in that other 99%, I need your help to keep bringing you stories that matter. It only takes 2 seconds. Hit the subscribe button right now and ring the bell. By joining the community, you ensure you never miss the next gripping chapter, and you directly support the dedication and craft that goes into every single story. Not your support makes the difference between me telling one story and telling 100 more. Thank you for subscribing. And now let's continue with the story. That night at Stanford Medical Center, doctors ran every test they could think of and found nothing that made sense. No blockage, no tissue damage, no explanation. Caleb lay in a private room on the cardiac wing, wired to machines that beeped softly in the dark. His chest rose and fell. Steady. Normal. Too normal. Dr. Chen stood at the foot of his bed, staring at the monitor like it had personally insulted him. "This doesn't happen," he muttered. A nurse looked up. "What doesn't?" "This." Dr. Chen gestured at the screen. "Flatline for 97 seconds. No intervention, no CPR, no defibrillation. Then suddenly," he snapped his fingers. "Perfect rhythm, like nothing happened." The nurse frowned. "Maybe the monitor glitched." "We checked. Twice. It didn't glitch." Silence filled the room. Dr. Chen pulled out his phone. He made a call, then another, then 3 more. Within hours, a cardiologist flew in from New York. Another joined by video from Massachusetts. A third from Washington State reviewed the data twice, then asked for the raw files. They gathered in a conference room at 3 a.m. No one spoke for the first 10 minutes. Finally, the doctor from New York broke the silence. "Statistically," he said slowly, "this shouldn't have happened." The doctor from Massachusetts nodded. His heart stopped. Completely. For over 90 seconds. Brain damage starts at 4 to 6 minutes, but cellular death begins almost immediately. "Except he has no damage," Dr. Chen added. "None. His brain scans are clean. His heart tissue is clean. He's better than clean. He's perfect." The doctor from Washington State leaned back in his chair. So, what are we saying here? Spontaneous recovery? No. Dr. Chen shook his head. Spontaneous recovery doesn't sync with external rhythms. That got everyone's attention. What rhythms? The New York doctor asked. Dr. Chen pulled up the footage. Security cam. Time-stamped. He played it frame by frame. 2 girls kneeling, hands on the floor, eyes closed, and on the monitor, barely visible in the corner of the frame, a pattern. 2 pulse lines. Faint, steady, identical, matching each other perfectly. Then slowly, Caleb's flat line began to shift. It didn't jump. It didn't spike. It synchronized. His heart, Dr. Chen said quietly, started beating in rhythm with theirs. No one responded, and the video kept playing. 97 seconds. Then Caleb's heart kicked back to life. The doctor from Massachusetts exhaled. We don't completely understand it, but the data is consistent. They stopped short of saying more, because saying more meant admitting something impossible had happened, and none of them were ready for that. Caleb woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the beeping started. The machines, the sterile smell, the IV in his arm. He remembered the pain, the floor, the twins. A nurse came in to check his vitals. She smiled. Professional. Warm. How are you feeling, Mr. Blackridge? Caleb's voice came out rough, dry. Like I died. The nurse's smile faltered. You're doing great. Your numbers are excellent. Where are the girls? She blinked. Well, I'm sorry? The maids, the twins. Where are they? The nurse hesitated. I don't know anything about that, but Dr. Chen wants to speak with you when you're ready. Caleb sat up too fast. Pain shot through his chest. He winced, but didn't lie back down. I'm ready now. Dr. Chen arrived 10 minutes later, tablet in hand, calm expression, doctor voice. Mr. Blackridge, I need to ask you some questions. Caleb cut him off. I don't care about questions. I want to know what happened. Dr. Chen sat down. That's what we're trying to figure out. You're the doctor. You tell me. Your heart stopped for 97 seconds. Then it started again. Dr. Chen paused. Without medical intervention. Caleb stared at him. That's impossible. Yes. So how? We don't know. Dr. Chen's voice was steady, honest. But we do know that during those 97 seconds, your heart rhythm synchronized with 2 external pulse patterns. Caleb's chest tightened. Not pain this time, something else. The twins. Dr. Chen nodded. We reviewed the footage. Whatever they did, however they did it, your body responded. Caleb leaned back against the pillows. His hands shook slightly. He clasped them together to hide it. Where are they? We don't know that either. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Caleb spoke. Quieter now, almost fragile. I yelled at a doctor 2 hours before this happened, threw something at him, threatened his career. He looked at Dr. Chen. Why would 2 kids I barely noticed save me? Dr. Chen didn't answer. Because he didn't have one. Caleb was discharged 3 days later. The media tried to swarm him. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Security pushed them back. Caleb said nothing. He climbed into the back of his car and stared out the window as they drove away from the hospital. His assistant, Rachel, efficient and terrified of him, sat in the front seat. She kept glancing back through the rearview mirror. Sir, there are 73 interview requests. CNN, Fox, NBC, everyone wants a statement. Caleb didn't look at her. Ignore them. But I said ignore them. Rachel nodded quickly. She knew better than to push. The car wound through the hills toward Carmel, toward the estate, toward the place where he'd collapsed, where two 14-year-old maids had knelt beside him and brought him back. Caleb closed his eyes. For the first time in years, shame came. Real shame. Quiet shame. I mean, the kind that sits in your chest and doesn't leave. He remembered the doctors he threatened, the workers he humiliated, the way power had felt like oxygen to him, the way he'd lived like consequences didn't exist. Until they did. When the car pulled up to the estate, Caleb stepped out slowly. The house looked the same. Glass, stone, perfect. But something had changed. He had, not redeemed, not yet, but changed. And for a man like Caleb Blackridge, that was a start. 2 weeks later, a private clinic in Connecticut received a full debt payoff, and no one knew why. Dr. Halverson stood in his small office, staring at the bank statement. Zero balance. The clinic had been drowning in debt for 18 months. Equipment loans, building repairs, payroll gaps they'd been covering with credit. Gone, all of it, paid in full. And the transfer came from an offshore account. No name attached. Just a reference number and 8 words in the memo line. For the paperweight, and everything else. Dr. Halverson's hands trembled. He knew exactly who sent it. That same week, a school in New Jersey received funding it had been denied for years. Principal Morris got the call on a Tuesday morning. "Ms. Morris, this is First National. We're calling about the grant application you submitted 3 years ago." She frowned. "The one that was rejected?" "Yes. We'd like to inform you it's been approved." "Approved? After 3 years?" "A private donor covered the full amount. The funds are available immediately." Ms. Morris sat down. Her legs wouldn't hold her. "How much?" $2.4 million. The phone almost slipped from her hand. Who's the donor?" "Anonymous. They only left instructions. The funds are to be used for student programs. No administrative overhead. No exceptions." Ms. Morris started crying. She didn't care who sent it. She just knew her kids would finally get what they needed. Across California, workers on Blackridge properties started noticing something strange. Paychecks were higher. Not by much at first. $50 here, $100 there. But it added up. Mariah worked housekeeping at a Blackridge hotel in San Francisco. Single mother. 2 kids, always one paycheck away from disaster. When she opened her bank app and saw the deposit, she thought it was a mistake. An extra $200. She called HR immediately. "There's been an error in my paycheck." The woman on the other end paused. "What kind of error?" "It's too high." Silence. "Ms. Herrera, there's no error. On all hourly wages were adjusted this month." "Adjusted? By who?" "Corporate directive. No explanation given." Maria hung up. She stared at her phone. Then she cried. Because for the first time in 5 years, she could pay rent without choosing between groceries and electricity. In Texas, a healthcare program expanded quietly into areas where Blackridge Development stood. Free clinics opened in Dallas, Houston, Austin. No press releases, no ribbon cuttings, just doors opening and doctors walking in. People showed up cautiously at first, waiting for the catch. There wasn't one. A woman named Claudia brought her son to a clinic in Dallas. He'd been coughing for weeks. She couldn't afford the ER. The doctor examined him, prescribed antibiotics, handed her the medication right there. "How much?" Claudia asked, reaching for her wallet. The nurse smiled. "Nothing. It's covered." Claudia blinked. Covered by who? The program. What program? The nurse shrugged. I don't know all the details, but it's real, and it's free. Claudia left with medicine in her hand and tears on her face. Back at the estate, Caleb sat in his office. The same office where he'd collapsed. The same desk where he'd thrown a paperweight at a man trying to help him. He hadn't yelled in 2 weeks, hadn't fired anyone, hadn't slammed a single door. His assistant Rachel kept waiting for the explosion. It never came. Instead, Caleb asked quiet questions. How many people work in our California properties? Rachel pulled up the file. Approximately 4,200. Average wage? She hesitated. $18.50 an hour. Caleb stared at the number, $18.50. He made that in 3 minutes. Adjust it, he said. Rachel blinked. Adjust it to what? 25, across the board, and back pay the difference for the last 6 months. Rachel's pen froze mid-note. Sir, I know what it is. Do it. She nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Caleb turned back to his computer. Rachel stood there for a moment longer, waiting for him to change his mind. He didn't. She left quietly, closing the door behind her. Caleb sat alone in the silence. He thought about Dr. Halverson, about the nurses and security guards who'd watched him collapse, about Maria and Claudia and everyone else he'd never thought about before. People whose names he didn't know, whose lives he'd never considered, until 2 14-year-old girls forced him to. He opened his laptop, typed a name into the search bar. Ilara and Nessa Vale. Nothing came up. He tried again. Different search terms, different databases, still nothing. It was like they didn't exist. No social media, no school records, no addresses. Just 2 ghosts who'd knelt beside him and pulled him back from the edge. Caleb leaned back in his chair. He didn't understand it, didn't understand them. But he understood this. He owed them. Not money. Money was easy. He owed them something harder. Change. Real change. The kind that couldn't be bought or faked or announced in a press release. The kind that happened in silence. One choice at a time. So he kept going. A women's shelter in Oregon received an anonymous donation. A veterans program in Colorado got funding for 3 years. Workers across every Black Ridge property saw wages adjust upward without explanation. No cameras, no speeches, no applause. Just changes. Quiet, steady, relentless. Because Caleb Blackridge had learned something on that marble floor. Power wasn't about how loud you could yell. It was about what you did when no one was watching. And for the first time in his life, he was using it right. Late one night, Rachel knocked on his office door. Sir? Caleb looked up. What is it? The board wants to meet. They're asking questions about the wage increases, the donations, Tell them I'll explain when I'm ready. Rachel nodded. She turned to leave, then stopped. Sir, can I ask you something? Caleb gestured for her to continue. Why are you doing this? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, because someone reminded me I could. Rachel nodded slowly. She didn't ask who. She didn't need to. Everyone in the house knew about the twins. Everyone knew what they'd done. And everyone knew that the man sitting in that office wasn't the same man who'd collapsed 2 weeks ago. He was quieter now, calmer, still powerful, but different. And that difference was spreading, one paycheck at a time, one clinic at a time, one life at a time. Caleb met the twins one last time before they left. And what they said changed everything. No cameras, no witnesses. Just 3 people in an empty room. It happened on a Thursday morning. Caleb had been searching for them for 3 weeks. Quietly. Carefully. He didn't want press involved. Didn't want security making a scene. He just needed to see them, to say something. He didn't know what yet. Rachel found them first. They were in the staff quarters, folding linens. Same uniforms, same quiet movements, like nothing had happened. Mr. Blackridge would like to speak with you, Rachel said softly. The twins looked at each other, then nodded. They followed Rachel through the house without a word, down the main hallway, past the office where Caleb had collapsed, into a small sitting room overlooking the ocean. Caleb stood when they entered. For a moment, no one spoke. He'd rehearsed this, practiced what to say, how to say it. But now, standing in front of them, every word felt wrong. They were so young, 14, children, and they'd saved his life. Finally, Caleb spoke. I don't deserve what you did. Nessa looked at him calmly. You don't have to. Alara added softly. You just have to remember. Caleb's throat tightened. He sat down slowly, gestured for them to sit too. They did. The silence stretched. I need to know, Caleb said. How did you do it? The twins exchanged a glance. Nessa answered first. We help if we can. That's not an answer. It's the only one we have, Alara said. Caleb leaned forward. You brought me back. My heart stopped. The doctor said, we know what they said. Nessa's voice was gentle, not defensive, just honest. Then explain it to me. Alara folded her hands in her lap. Some people carry things, pain, anger. It builds up, gets stuck. We just unstick it. Unstick it, Caleb repeated. Your heart stopped because your body couldn't carry it anymore, Nessa said. All that rage, all that weight, it was killing you. Caleb felt his chest tighten, not pain, something else. So you what? Fixed me? No. Alara shook her head. We gave you a chance. What you do with it is up to you. Silence filled the room again, and Caleb looked down at his hands. The same hands that had thrown a paperweight, slammed desks, pointed at people while he screamed. Why me? He asked quietly. Because no one else was, Nessa said simply. Caleb looked up. What? Everyone was afraid of you, Alara explained. So they ran, or they stayed quiet. But no one helped, not really. I didn't want help. We know. Nessa's eyes were steady, clear. But you needed it. Caleb swallowed hard. He thought about the doctors, the staff, the years of people walking on eggshells around him, the years he'd spent believing fear meant respect. I've been trying to make things right, he said. The donations, the wages, we know. Alara interrupted gently. How? People talk. Nessa smiled slightly, quietly. But they talk. Caleb nodded slowly, and then he asked the question that had been eating at him for weeks. Will it last? The twins didn't answer immediately. Finally, Nessa spoke. That depends. On what? On whether you remember what it felt like. Caleb frowned. What felt like? Dying, Alara said softly. And being saved by people you didn't see? The words hit him like a punch. He remembered the cold floor, the pain, the darkness closing in, and two small hands pressed against the marble, not touching him, just there. I remember, he whispered. Then it will last, Nessa said. Caleb looked at them both, these two quiet girls who'd appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. Where will you go? He asked. Where we're needed, Alara said. Will I see you again? They didn't answer. Caleb stood. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I know you said you didn't want money, but this isn't payment. It's... He stopped, struggled for the right word. It's a thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. He held it out. Neither twin moved. Please, Caleb said quietly. Nessa stood. She took the envelope, opened it. Inside was a check for $100,000. She looked at it for a long moment, then she tore it in half. Caleb's eyes widened. What are you? We don't need this, Nessa said gently. She handed the pieces back to him. Alara stood too. But someone else does. Who? You'll know, Alara said, when you see them. Caleb stared at the torn check in his hands. I don't understand. You will, Nessa said. The twins moved toward the door. Caleb's voice stopped them. Wait. They turned. He wanted to say so many things. Thank you felt too small. I'm sorry felt too late. So instead, he said the only thing that felt true. I won't forget. Nessa smiled. Small. Real. Good. Alara nodded once. Then they left. Caleb stood alone in the sitting room, holding torn pieces of a check, staring at the empty doorway. He didn't follow them. He just stood there, feeling the weight of what they'd said. You just have to remember, dying and being saved by people you didn't see. Caleb walked to the window, looked out at the ocean, the same view he'd seen 1,000 times. But today it looked different, clearer. He thought about Maria, about Claudia, about Dr. Halverson and Principal Morris and everyone else he'd helped without ever meeting. People he didn't see, until now. He looked down at the torn check again. Then he smiled. Small. Quiet. Because he understood. The twins hadn't taken his money because they didn't need it. They'd refused it because he did. He needed to remember that money couldn't fix everything. That some things, the most important things, couldn't be bought. Like forgiveness. Like change. Like two 14-year-old girls who knelt beside a dying man and gave him a second chance. Not because he deserved it, but because no one else was. Caleb folded the torn check carefully, put it in his pocket, and walked back to his office. There was work to do. Not the kind that made headlines. The kind that happened in silence. One choice at a time. And he was just getting started. The twins disappeared from the estate the next morning, and no one saw them leave. Not security, not staff, not the cameras positioned at every exit. One moment they were there, the next gone. Rachel discovered it first. She knocked on the staff quarters at 6 a.m., holding 2 new contracts. Better pay, better hours. Caleb had insisted, no answer. She knocked again, still nothing. She opened the door slowly. The room was empty, beds made, surfaces clean. Not a single item left behind. No note, no forwarding address, no trace. Rachel stood in the doorway, staring at the spotless room. Then she called Caleb. He arrived within minutes, still in yesterday's clothes. He hadn't slept. He walked through the room slowly, opened the closet, checked the bathroom, looked under the beds. Nothing. When did anyone last see them? He asked. Rachel pulled out her phone, checked the staff log. Yesterday, 4:37 p.m. They finished their shift and went to their quarters. That's the last entry. Caleb turned to the window, and it was closed, locked from the inside. He checked the hallway. Empty. Security reviewed the footage 3 times. The twins entered their room at 4:37 p.m. The door closed, and they never came out. Not through the door, not through the window, not through the vents. At 6:02 a.m., Rachel opened the door to an empty room. 15 hours, no movement. This doesn't make sense, the head of security muttered. People don't just vanish. But they had. Caleb stood in the center of the empty room. He thought about what Nessa had said. Where we're needed. He understood now. They weren't hiding. They were gone. To wherever came next. He pulled the torn check from his pocket, looked at it one last time. Then he left. The news spread through the estate within hours. Whispers in hallways, glances exchanged in the kitchen. The twins were gone, and some staff felt relieved. They'd always been strange, too quiet, too still. Others felt something else. Loss. Because in the 2 weeks since Caleb's collapse, things had changed, and everyone knew it started with them. Maria in San Francisco heard about it 3 days later. She was folding towels in the hotel laundry room when another housekeeper mentioned it. "Did you hear about those twins?" Maria looked up. "What twins?" "The ones at the main estate. The ones who saved Mr. Blackridge." Maria set down the towel. "What happened?" "They disappeared. Just gone." Maria's chest tightened. She thought about her last paycheck, the extra money that let her son get new shoes, the raise that meant she didn't have to skip meals anymore. She thought about the man who'd made that happen, and the 2 girls who'd made him. And where did they go? Maria asked quietly. The other housekeepers shrugged. No one knows. Maria went back to folding towels, but her hands moved slower now, heavier. In Connecticut, Dr. Halverson sat in his newly renovated office. New equipment lined the walls, new computers, new exam tables, all paid for by the man who'd almost killed him. He thought about the twins often. He'd never met them, never even seen them. But he knew. Without them, Caleb Blackridge would be dead, and this clinic would still be drowning. He made a decision that day. He wrote a letter, not to Caleb, to whoever found the twins. If you ever see them, tell them thank you for saving more than one life. He sealed it, put it in his desk drawer, and went back to work. In New Jersey, Principal Morris stood in the new computer lab. 25 brand new stations, the high-speed internet, software licenses for 3 years. Students filled every seat, eyes bright, fingers flying across keyboards. One girl in the back, shy, quiet, never raised her hand, was coding a game, her first one. Ms. Morris watched her for a moment. Then she thought about the anonymous donor, the $2.4 million that appeared out of nowhere, and the girls who'd started it all. She didn't know their names, didn't know their faces, but she knew what they'd done. They'd changed a man, and that man had changed everything else. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, typed 4 words. "Thank you, whoever you are." Then she went back to watching her students learn. Back at the estate, Caleb worked late into the night. Every night, his office lights stayed on long after everyone else had gone home. And he wasn't working on deals anymore. He was working on people. He pulled up employee files, read through benefits packages, identified gaps. Healthcare coverage was too low. He doubled it. Retirement matching was minimal. He tripled it. Paid leave was a joke. He rewrote the entire policy. Rachel found him at 2 a.m. one night, still at his desk. "Sir, you should get some rest." Caleb didn't look up. Not yet. "You've been doing this for weeks." "I know." Rachel hesitated. Then she asked the question everyone wanted to ask. "Are you looking for them?" Caleb finally looked up. His eyes were tired, but clear. "No." "Then what are you doing?" Caleb leaned back in his chair, remembering. Rachel didn't understand, but she nodded anyway, and left him alone. Caleb turned back to his computer. He thought about Alara and Nessa, about the way they'd looked at him. Not with fear, not with judgment, with something else. Hope. like they believed he could be better, even when he didn't believe it himself. He thought about what they'd said. You just have to remember. So he did. Every day, every choice. Every time he wanted to yell, he remembered the cold floor. Every time he wanted to fire someone for a mistake, he remembered the flat line. Every time he wanted to go back to who he was, he remembered two small hands pressed against marble. And he chose differently. It wasn't easy. Some days it felt impossible. But he kept going, because they'd given him something no one else could. Not a second chance. A reason to take it. Weeks turned into months. The changes spread. Workers across every Black Ridge property saw improvements. Better wages, better benefits, better treatment. Clinics stayed open. Schools got funded. Communities got support. All of it quiet. All of it steady. All of it real. And somewhere, in a place no one could find, two 14-year-old girls moved on to wherever they were needed next. They didn't look back. They didn't need to. Because they knew. The man they'd saved wasn't the same man who'd collapsed. He was someone new. Someone better. Someone who remembered. And that was enough. Caleb sat alone in his office. He pulled the torn check from his desk drawer, looked at it one last time. Then he put it back, a reminder of the day he died, and the two people who brought him back. Not with money, not with power, with something simpler. Compassion. And the belief that even the angriest man could change, if he chose to. Our doctors agreed on one thing. If the twins hadn't been there at 2:47 p.m., Caleb Blackridge would be dead. But 3 months later, they still couldn't explain why his heart had listened to them. Dr. Chen sat in his office at Stanford Medical Center, staring at the same footage he'd watched 100 times. Two girls kneeling, hands on the floor, eyes closed, and a dead man coming back to life. He'd submitted the case to 3 medical journals. All 3 rejected it. Insufficient data. No reproducible mechanism. Outside the scope of current medical understanding. In other words, we don't believe you. Dr. Chen didn't blame them. He barely believed it himself. But the data didn't lie. Caleb's heart had stopped for 97 seconds. Then it synchronized with 2 external rhythms. Then it started again. Perfect. Undamaged. Impossible. Dr. Chen pulled up the waveforms one more time. 3 lines on the monitor. Caleb's flat line in the center. 2 pulse patterns on either side. Identical. Steady. Then, slowly, the flat line began to move. Not randomly. Deliberately. Like it was being pulled. Guided. The 3 lines merged. Beat together. Then separated again as Caleb's heart took over. Dr. Chen leaned back in his chair. He'd been a cardiologist for 23 years. He'd seen spontaneous recovery, seen defibrillation miracles, seen hearts restart against impossible odds. But he'd never seen this. A heart learning to beat again from 2 14-year-old girls who never touched the patient. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Dr. Chen? Speaking. This is Dr. Patricia Lim. I'm a researcher at Johns Hopkins. I heard about your case. Doctor. Chen sat up straighter. From who? A colleague in Massachusetts. He showed me the footage. And? Silence. Then, I need to see the original files. Dr. Chen hesitated. This is a confidential medical case. I know, but Dr. Chen, I've been studying cardiac synchronization for 15 years. What you captured shouldn't be possible. But if it is... She trailed off. If it is, what? Then we need to understand it. Because if 2 untrained teenagers can restart a heart with no equipment, no medication, no physical intervention, then everything we know about cardiac medicine might be incomplete. Dr. Chen exhaled slowly. I'll send you the files. Thank you. Dr. Lim? Yes? When you see them, tell me I'm not crazy. She laughed softly. You're not crazy. You're just seeing something no one else has seen before. They hung up. Doctor. Chen sent the files. Then he went back to watching the footage, trying to understand the impossible. Meanwhile, across the country, people were starting to notice. A journalist in Boston picked up the story first. Not the twins, the changes. She'd been investigating Blackridge Industries for a corruption piece. Anonymous tip about wage theft, unsafe working conditions. But when she started digging, she found the opposite. Wages above market rate. Healthcare benefits that exceeded industry standards. Safety protocols that went beyond legal requirements. She called workers, interviewed managers, checked financial records. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Blackridge Industries had transformed. Quietly, completely. And it all started 3 months ago, right after Caleb Blackridge's cardiac event. And the journalist, Diane Morse, made another call, this time to the estate. Rachel answered. Blackridge Industries. How may I help you? This is Diane Morse with the Boston Herald. I'd like to speak with Mr. Blackridge about recent changes to company policy. Rachel's voice stayed professional. Mr. Blackridge doesn't give interviews. I'm not looking for an interview, just a statement about the wage increases, the healthcare expansion, I'm sorry, Mr. Blackridge has no comment. Click. Diane stared at her phone. Then she smiled, because silence was an answer too. She started writing. The article ran 2 weeks later. The billionaire who stopped yelling, inside Caleb Blackridge's quiet revolution. It detailed everything. The cardiac arrest, the mysterious recovery, the sudden policy changes, and buried in the middle, the one paragraph about 2 teenage maids who disappeared without a trace. The article went viral within hours. Not because people cared about corporate policy, because they wanted to know about the twins. Who were they? Where did they go? How did they do it? Social media exploded. Hashtag Find the Twins trended for 3 days. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Some said they were angels. Others said government experiment. A few claimed aliens. Most just wanted answers. Caleb saw the article at 6 a.m. He read it twice. Then he called Rachel. Did we authorize this? No, sir. She called. I declined comment. How did she get the details? Public records, employee interviews. Medical reports are sealed, but the basic facts were filed with emergency services. Caleb closed his eyes. He'd known this would happen eventually. He'd hoped for more time. Sir? Rachel's voice was cautious. The board wants to respond. They're drafting a statement. Tell them no. But no statements, no interviews, no responses. People are asking questions. Let them ask. Rachel paused. What about the twins? People want to know. The twins are gone, Caleb interrupted. And that's how they wanted it. We're not turning them into a story. Yes, sir. Caleb hung up. He sat alone in his office. The same office where everything had changed. He thought about what the article said. A quiet revolution. He smiled slightly, because it was true. He had changed. Not because of the publicity, not because of the recognition, because 2 girls who owed him nothing gave him everything. And he wasn't about to repay that by turning them into a spectacle. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He opened it. Thank you for the silence. E and N. Caleb stared at the screen. His hands trembled slightly. They were still out there, still watching, still caring. He typed back quickly. Where are you? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then one final message. Where we're needed. Don't look for us. Just keep remembering. The conversation ended. Caleb set his phone down. He looked out the window. The sun was rising over the Pacific. Same view. Different man. He thought about Dr. Chen and his unanswered questions. About Diane Morse and her viral article. About millions of people asking how. But Caleb knew the real question wasn't how. It was why. Why did 2 girls save a man who'd spent years hurting people? Why did they refuse payment? Why did they disappear? The answer was simple and impossible. Because some people don't help for recognition. They help because they can. And because no one else was. Caleb stood. He had work to do. Not because people were watching now. Because 2 people had watched when no one else did. And that was enough. What they couldn't agree on was why his heart listened to them. Dr. Patricia Lim arrived at Stanford Medical Center on a cold Tuesday morning. She'd spent 6 weeks analyzing the files Dr. Chen sent her. 6 weeks of sleepless nights, endless calculations, and one impossible conclusion. She needed to see the footage in person. Dr. Chen met her in the conference room. Dark circles under his eyes, coffee cup shaking slightly in his hand. "You've been watching it too," Dr. Lim said. It wasn't a question. "Every night," Dr. Chen admitted. "I keep thinking I'll see something I missed." And? Nothing, just 2 girls kneeling, and a miracle. Dr. Lim set her laptop on the table. "Let me show you something." She pulled up a waveform analysis, colors coded, patterns highlighted. This is Caleb's heart rhythm in the 30 seconds before collapse. Irregular, chaotic, climbing toward failure. And this is during the 97 seconds. Flat, dead. But look here. She zoomed in on the timeline, enhanced the background noise. 2 faint signals appeared. Steady, identical. Synchronized. "The twins' pulses," Dr. Chen said. "Yes, but watch what happens at second 43. She played it frame by frame. The flat line flickered once, twice, then began to mirror the external rhythms. Not perfectly at first, weak, hesitant, but gradually stronger. Like it was learning. "It's entrainment," Dr. Lim said quietly. Dr. Chen frowned. "Cardiac entrainment requires physical contact, chest compressions, direct stimulation." "I know. They never touched him." "I know." Silence filled the room. Dr. Chen stared at the screen. "So what are we saying? That their hearts taught his heart to beat again?" "I'm saying the data shows synchronization. How it happened." She shook her head. "I don't know. This will never pass peer review. I know. Medical journals will reject it. Probably. Then why are we doing this?" Dr. Lim looked at him. "Because it happened. And because somewhere out there 2 14-year-old girls did something we can't explain. And if we ignore it because we don't understand it..." She trailed off. "We missed the chance to learn." Dr. Chen finished. They sat in silence. Outside, the world kept moving. People lived. People died. Hearts stopped and started according to rules written in textbooks. But in this room, those rules had broken. And no one knew how to fix them. Across the country, the story kept growing. A podcast picked it up. Then another. Then 10 more. The twins who stopped time. Miracle or medicine? The Black Ridge mystery. Everyone had theories. A holistic healer in Oregon claimed it was energy work. A physicist in New York suggested quantum entanglement. A priest in Louisiana called it divine intervention. But none of them had data. None of them had footage. None of them had been there. Only 4 people knew what really happened in that room: Caleb, Ilara, Nessa, and the truth. Maria in San Francisco started getting calls. Reporters, podcasters, documentary filmmakers, all asking the same thing. "That you worked at Blackridge Industries. Did you know the twins?" Maria answered the first few honestly. "No, I work in San Francisco. They were at the main estate." But the calls kept coming, so she stopped answering. Because the truth was simpler than anyone wanted to hear. She didn't know the twins, but she knew what they'd done. They'd saved a man, and that man had saved her. That was enough. In New Jersey, Principal Morris got a visit from a news crew. They wanted to film the computer lab, interview students, tell the story of the anonymous donation. She declined, politely, firmly. "This isn't about publicity," she told them. "It's about kids learning, and I won't turn that into a circus." The crew left disappointed, but Ms. Morris didn't care. She went back to her office, looked at the note she'd written months ago. "Thank you, whoever you are." And she meant it. Back at the estate, Caleb stopped reading the articles, stopped watching the videos, stopped caring what people said. Because the noise didn't matter. The work did. He expanded healthcare benefits into Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, opened clinics in rural areas where people drove 2 hours for basic care, funded scholarships for workers' kids, full ride, no strings attached. Every decision was quiet, every change was permanent, and every single one was because of 2 girls who'd knelt beside him and refused to let him die. Late one night, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But something made him pick up. "Hello?" Static. Then a voice. Young, female, familiar. "You're doing good." Caleb's breath caught. "Nessa?" Silence. And then, "Keep going." "Wait, where are you?" "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." "We know." Another voice joined. Softer. "Ilara." "But we're not the story, Mr. Blackridge. You are." "That's not, everyone's asking how we did it," Nessa interrupted. "But that's the wrong question." Caleb sat down. His hands were shaking. "What's the right question?" "Why did it work?" Caleb frowned. "I don't understand." "Your heart stopped because you stopped caring," Ilara said gently. "About people. About consequences. About everything except being angry. And we couldn't restart it with medicine or machines," Nessa continued. "Because that's not what it needed." "Then what did it need?" Silence. Then both voices together. "To remember why it mattered." The line went dead. Caleb sat in the darkness, staring at his phone, trying to process what they'd said. His heart had stopped because he'd stopped caring. And it restarted because... what? Because 2 girls cared when he didn't? Because they saw him as worth saving even when he wasn't? Because they believed he could be better? He thought about the past 4 months. Every policy change, every donation, every choice. He'd been trying to repay them. But maybe that wasn't it. Maybe they'd given him something he couldn't repay. Not a second chance. A first one. The first time in his life, someone had helped him without wanting anything back. The first time someone had seen past the anger to the person underneath. The first time someone had believed he mattered, not his money, not his power, him. And his heart had listened. Because for 97 seconds, 2 14-year-old girls had cared more about his life than he ever had. And that changed everything. Caleb stood, walked to the window. The ocean was dark tonight, waves crashing against rocks below. He pulled out his phone, typed a message to the unknown number. "I understand now. Thank you." He didn't expect a response, didn't need one, because he finally got it. The doctors would never understand why his heart listened to the twins, because it wasn't about medicine. It was about connection, about two people choosing to help when they didn't have to, about compassion being stronger than science, about hearts knowing things minds couldn't measure. And that was the answer no one wanted to hear, because it meant everything they thought they knew about saving lives might be incomplete. Caleb smiled. Then he went back to work. Still quiet. Still steady. Still remembering. Always remembering. And why, after everything, the weakest people in the room had held the most power. 6 months after the incident, Caleb received a package. No return address, no note. Just a small wooden box wrapped in brown paper. Rachel brought it to his office. "This arrived this morning. Security already cleared it." Caleb took it carefully. The box was light, almost empty. He opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper and 2 hospital bracelets, the kind they give patients in emergency rooms, small, white, child-sized. He picked them up with trembling hands. The names were printed clearly: Ilara Vale, Nessa Vale. But it was the dates that made his chest tighten. Both bracelets showed the same day, 6 years ago, the same hospital, Stanford Medical Center, the same place they'd taken him. Caleb unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat, deliberate, young. "You asked why we helped you. This is why. 6 years ago, our mother collapsed. Heart failure. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. But one doctor stayed, Dr. Chen. He tried for 98 minutes. Long after protocol said to stop, he brought her back. She lived for 3 more years. Good years. The best years. We learned that day that hearts don't always follow rules. Sometimes they just need someone who refuses to give up. You were that someone's son, that someone's father, that someone's chance. We saw your anger, but we also saw your heart trying to give up. And we remembered what Dr. Chen taught us. Never stop trying, so we didn't. Keep remembering, Mr. Blackridge, not just what happened to you, but what happens when one person refuses to let another person die." Caleb read it 3 times. His vision blurred. Dr. Chen. The same doctor who'd spent months trying to understand what happened. The same man who'd saved their mother 6 years ago. The same man who'd witnessed their mother's daughters save someone else. Caleb grabbed his phone, called Stanford Medical Center. "I need to speak with Dr. Chen. It's urgent." 20 minutes later, Dr. Chen's voice came through. "Mr. Blackridge?" "You knew them." Silence. "Dr. Chen, you knew the twins." A long exhale. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because they asked me not to." Caleb sat down. "Tell me about their mother." Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "Sarah Vale, 34 years old, single mother, heart failure. She coded in the ER. Standard protocol is 30 minutes of resuscitation. After that." He trailed off. "You kept going. I kept going. 98 minutes. My team thought I was crazy. But something told me not to stop. And she came back. She came back. Lived 3 more years. The twins were 8 when it happened. 14 when she passed." Caleb's throat tightened. "They watched you save her." "They did. And they watched her die anyway. Cancer. Unrelated to the heart condition. But those 3 years mattered. To them. To her. Is that why they can do what they do?" Dr. Chen hesitated. I don't think they can do anything supernatural, Mr. Blackridge. I think they learned something most people never learn. What? That refusing to give up on someone has power, real power, the kind science can't always measure. Caleb closed his eyes. He thought about two 8-year-old girls watching a doctor fight for their mother. 98 minutes, 1 minute longer than they'd fought for him. They didn't save me with magic, Caleb said quietly. No. They saved me with hope. Yes. And you gave them that hope 6 years ago. Dr. Chen's voice cracked. I just did my job. You did more than that. You showed 2 children that people are worth fighting for, even when it seems impossible. Silence. Then Dr. Chen spoke. They showed you the same thing. Caleb nodded, even though Dr. Chen couldn't see him. They did. They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Caleb asked, "Where are they now?" "I don't know. After their mother died, they went into foster care, bounced around. Then they disappeared from the system about a year ago." Disappeared how? Just stopped showing up. No one filed a missing persons report because they kept moving anyway. Social workers assumed they aged out early or ran away. They were 13. I know. And no one looked for them? No one cared enough to look. Caleb felt anger rising. The old kind, hot, sharp. But this time, it wasn't directed at someone in front of him. It was directed at a system that lost 2 extraordinary children because they were too quiet to notice. "I'm going to find them," Caleb said. "Mr. Blackridge, I'm going to find them, and I'm going to make sure they're okay. They clearly don't want to be found. I don't care. They saved my life. I'm not going to let them disappear." Dr. Chen sighed. "If you do find them, be careful." "Careful how?" "They've spent their whole lives helping other people. They don't know how to let people help them back." Caleb understood, because 6 months ago, he'd been the same way. He hung up, stared at the hospital bracelets on his desk. Then he made a decision. He called his head of security. "I need you to find 2 girls, Ilara and Nessa Vale, 14 years old. Last known location was California foster system." "Sir, that could take, I don't care how long it takes. Find them." "Yes, sir." Caleb hung up. He picked up the bracelets again, held them carefully. These weren't just pieces of plastic. They were proof. Proof that kindness wasn't weakness. Proof that the smallest people could hold the most power. Proof that saving one person could change everything. Dr. Chen had saved Sarah Vale. Sarah had raised Ilara and Nessa. Ilara and Nessa had saved him, and now he would save them. Not because he owed them, because they'd taught him what Dr. Chen had taught them. People are worth fighting for, even when it seems impossible, especially then. Caleb stood, walked to the window. The sun was setting over the Pacific. Somewhere out there, 2 girls were helping someone else. Someone who needed them. Someone who didn't see them coming, just like he hadn't. But this time, when they finished, they wouldn't disappear. Because Caleb Blackridge refused to give up. Just like they'd refused to give up on him. And that refusal? That was the real power. Not money, not influence, not control. Just one person deciding another person matters, and not stopping until they prove it. Caleb smiled. Then he got to work. He had 2 girls to find, and a debt to repay. Not with money, with the same thing they'd given him. A chance. Rachel knocked on the door. "Sir, the investigator is online too." Caleb picked up immediately. "Tell me you have something." "Not yet, but I will." "How long?" "However long it takes." Caleb nodded. "Good answer." He hung up, looked at the bracelets one more time. Then he put them in his desk drawer, right next to the torn check. Reminders of the day he died, of the two people who brought him back, and of the promise he made to keep remembering, to keep changing, to keep fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Because that's what they'd done for him when he was the angriest, the meanest, the least deserving. They'd fought anyway. And now it was his turn. 3 weeks later, the investigator called at 2 a.m., and Caleb answered on the first ring. I found them. Caleb sat up in bed, heart pounding. Where? Seattle. You're working at a shelter for homeless veterans. Are they okay? They're fine, healthy, safe. But Mr. Blackridge, what? They know I've been looking. They left me a message. Caleb's chest tightened. What did it say? Tell him we're okay. Tell him to stop looking. Tell him we'll find him when it's time. Caleb closed his eyes. Of course they knew. They always knew. Give me the address anyway. Sir, they clearly don't want. I'm not going to show up unannounced. I just need to know where they are, in case they need help. The investigator hesitated. Then he gave Caleb the address. Caleb wrote it down with shaking hands. Thank you. What do you want me to do now? Keep watching, from a distance. Make sure they're safe. Yes, sir. Caleb hung up. He stared at the address on the paper. Seattle, 1,000 miles away, helping veterans. Of course they were, because that's what they did. They found people who needed help, and they helped them. Caleb didn't sleep the rest of the night. He sat in his office, staring at that piece of paper, fighting the urge to get on a plane immediately. But he knew what they'd say. We'll find you when it's time. So he waited. And while he waited, he kept working. The changes spread further, beyond his company, beyond his properties. He started a foundation. No publicity, no press releases, just quiet funding for the things no one else would fund. Medical debt relief in Washington State, veteran housing in Oregon, after-school programs in California, mental health services in Texas. Every program was chosen carefully, every dollar tracked, every impact measured, and then every single decision was made with one question. What would they do? The foundation ran for 6 months before anyone noticed. Then a veteran in Seattle posted something online, a simple message. Someone paid off my medical debt. I don't know who. But thank you. You saved my life. Another veteran commented. Me too. $47,000 gone, just like that. Then another. My housing was covered for a year. No explanation. Just a letter saying I deserve stability. The thread went viral. People started connecting dots. All the recipients were in the same areas. Washington, Oregon, California, Texas. All the programs were connected to one foundation, the Blackridge Foundation. But when reporters called, no one answered. When they showed up at the office, they found a locked door and a single sign. This foundation does not give interviews. It gives help. If you need help, call the number below. The number led to a voicemail, a simple message in a calm voice. Tell us what you need. We'll do what we can. That was it. No forms, no applications, no bureaucracy. Just a phone number and a promise. Within weeks, the voicemail was full. Single mothers asking for childcare help. Teachers asking for classroom supplies. Families asking for medical bill assistance. The foundation hired a team, not executives, not managers. Just people who cared. People who'd been helped before and wanted to help others. Maria from San Francisco was the first hire. She answered calls, processed requests, made things happen. She never forgot the paycheck that changed her life. Now she got to change other people's lives. Every single day. Principal Morris was the second hire. She ran the education programs, made sure kids who needed resources got them. No questions asked, no judgment given. Dr. Halverson was the third. He ran the medical programs, connected people to care they couldn't afford, paid bills they couldn't pay, one patient at a time. The team grew slowly, carefully. Every person was chosen for one reason. They understood what it meant to need help, and they understood what it meant to receive it. Caleb watched from a distance. He didn't run the foundation. He funded it. But the work belonged to the people who did it. People like Maria, like Ms. Morris, like Dr. Halverson. People who knew how to help because they'd been helped. Late one night, Caleb's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You built something beautiful." His hands trembled as he typed back. "I learned from the best." 3 dots appeared. "You're not learning anymore. You're teaching." Teaching what? That one person's choice to help can become 1,000 people's choice to help. Caleb stared at the message. "Is it time?" The dots appeared again, disappeared, appeared, soon. "Where are you?" "Still where we're needed." "What if I need you?" The response came immediately. "You don't need us anymore, Mr. Blackridge. You never really did. You just needed to remember who you were before anger took over. And who was that? Someone who cared. You just forgot how." Caleb's vision blurred. He thought about the man he'd been 7 months ago, the rage, the cruelty, the isolation. He thought about the man he was now. Still powerful, still wealthy, but different, softer, kinder, present. "You did that," he typed. "No, you did. We just refused to let you die before you had the chance." Caleb smiled through tears. "Thank you. Thank us by keeping going. I will. I promise. We know. That's why it's almost time." "Time for what?" "For you to meet the people you've helped, to see what refusing to give up really means." The dots stopped. Caleb waited. No more messages came. He sat in the darkness, holding his phone. Almost time. He didn't know what that meant. But he trusted them. Because 7 months ago, they'd trusted him when no one else would. And that trust had changed everything. Caleb stood, walked to his desk, pulled out the drawer, the hospital bracelets, the torn check, the address in Seattle. Pieces of a story he still didn't fully understand. But he was starting to. It wasn't about him. It never had been. It was about what happens when one person refuses to let another person fall. When one doctor fights for 98 minutes. When 2 girls kneel beside a stranger. When a billionaire remembers he's human. When a foundation answers every call. When help becomes a chain instead of a transaction. Dr. Chen had saved Sarah. Sarah had raised Alara and Nessa. Alara and Nessa had saved him. He had helped Maria and Dr. Halverson and Miss Morris. And they were helping thousands more. One person at a time, one choice at a time, one refusal to give up at a time. That was the power the twins had shown him. Not magic, not medicine. Just the unstoppable force of people who refused to let other people suffer alone. Caleb put the items back in the drawer. Tomorrow he'd go to the foundation office, meet the team, hear the stories, see the faces. Because it was time to stop watching from a distance. It was time to be present, to be grateful, to be the person 2 14-year-old girls believed he could be, even when he didn't believe it himself. The phone buzzed one more time. "Sleep well, Mr. Blackridge. Tomorrow is important." He smiled. "Tomorrow is important," he typed back. Then he went to bed. For the first time in 7 months, he slept through the night. No nightmares, no guilt, no rage, just peace. Because he finally understood. He'd been given a second chance, and he was using it right. The next morning, Caleb walked into the foundation office and found 200 people waiting for him. He stopped in the doorway. His chest tightened, not from pain, from something else entirely. Maria stood at the front, tears already streaming down her face. Next to her stood a young boy, maybe 10. Clean clothes, new shoes, bright eyes. Her son. Behind them, rows and rows of faces. Veterans, teachers, single parents, students, families. People he'd never met. People whose lives he'd changed without knowing their names. And in the very back, standing quietly by the window, were Alara and Nessa. Caleb's breath caught. They smiled. Small. Knowing. Then Nessa gestured toward the crowd. This was what they meant by almost time. Maria stepped forward first. Mr. Blackridge, I'm Maria. You don't know me, but you changed my life. 7 months ago, I couldn't afford to feed my son and pay rent. Your wage increase meant I could do both. And now, her voice broke. Now I get to help other people the way you helped me. She stepped back. A man in a wheelchair came forward, gray hair, weathered face, Marine Corps tattoo on his forearm. James Patterson, Seattle. You paid off my medical debt, $53,000. I was going to lose my house, now I'm not. And I get to stay near my grandkids. A woman in her 60s. Linda Chen, New Jersey. You funded my grandson's school. He's the first person in our family going to college because of you. A young teacher. Rebecca Moore, Texas. Your foundation bought supplies for my classroom. My kids finally have books. Real books. Thank you. One by one, they came forward. Each person, each story, each life changed. Caleb stood frozen. He'd seen the numbers, read the reports, approved the funding. But numbers weren't people, and reports weren't faces. This was real. A veteran who could sleep indoors, a child who could eat every day, a grandmother who could breathe without worrying about bills, a teacher who could teach. All because he'd changed. All because 2 girls had refused to let him die. When the last person finished speaking, the room went quiet. Caleb tried to speak. Couldn't. His throat was too tight. Finally, he managed 2 words. Thank you. Maria shook her head. No. Thank you for remembering us. I didn't do this alone, Caleb said, his voice rough. None of this happens without... He looked toward the back of the room. But the twins were gone. Caleb's heart sank. Then he felt a hand on his arm. He turned. Alara and Nessa stood beside him. Quiet, calm, present. We're not the story, Nessa said softly, looking at the crowd. They are. And neither are you, Alara added, looking at Caleb. It's what happens when someone chooses to help. Yeah, that's the story. Caleb knelt down, eye level with them. You saved my life. No, Nessa said. We reminded you that you had one. And that other people did too, Alara added. Caleb's vision blurred. I don't know how you did what you did. The doctors don't either. But I know why. The twins waited. Because you saw something in me that I'd forgotten was there. Something worth saving. Nessa nodded slowly. Everyone has something worth saving, Mr. Blackridge. Even the angry ones. Especially the angry ones. Because anger is just pain looking for a way out, Alara said. And you were in so much pain. Caleb's tears fell freely now. He thought about the man he'd been. The rage, the loneliness, the certainty that power meant control. He'd been dying long before his heart stopped, dying from the inside out. and 2 children had seen it, who had cared enough to kneel beside him, had refused to let him go. "What happens now?" Caleb asked. "You keep going," Nessa said simply. "And we do too," Alara added. "Where?" They both smiled. "Wherever we're needed next." Caleb stood. "Can I help? Can I come with you? Fund what you're doing?" Nessa shook her head gently. "You already are helping, just not by following us." "Then how?" Alara gestured to the room, to Maria and James and Linda and Rebecca, to all 200 people. "By showing them what you learned, that helping one person creates a ripple, and ripples become waves. And waves change everything," Nessa finished. The twins stepped back. Caleb wanted to stop them, to ask them to stay, to make them promise to check in. But he didn't, because he finally understood. They weren't meant to stay. They were meant to move, on from person to person, life to life, helping, healing, reminding, and then disappearing before anyone could turn them into heroes. Because the real heroes weren't the ones who saved. They were the ones who chose to change after being saved. "Will I see you again?" Caleb asked. "Maybe," Alara said. "If you need us," Nessa added. "But we don't think you will." They turned to leave. Caleb called after them one last time. "Wait." They stopped. "Your mother, Sarah, Dr. Chen told me about her." The twins looked at each other, then back at Caleb. "She taught us that life isn't about how long you live," Alara said. "It's about what you do with the time you have." "She got 3 extra years because someone refused to give up on her," Nessa continued. "I reckon we gotta have a mom for 3 more years because of that." "That's why we help," they said together. "Because someone helped us first." Caleb nodded, understanding flooding through him. "I won't waste it," he said. "The time you gave me. I promise." "We know," Nessa said. "That's why we came back," Alara added. "To see what you built, to meet the people you helped, to know our mom's story didn't end with her." "It's still going," Nessa said. "Through you, through them, through everyone who chooses to help." "That's the real miracle, Mr. Blackridge," Alara said. "Not that your heart started again, but that you remembered why it beats." The twins walked to the door. The crowd parted silently. At the threshold, they turned back one last time. "Goodbye, Mr. Blackridge." "Goodbye," Caleb whispered. Then they were gone, and the room stayed silent for a long moment. Finally, Maria spoke. "What do we do now?" Caleb wiped his eyes, looked at the 200 faces staring at him. People who'd been helped, who wanted to help others. People who understood what the twins had taught him. That the weakest people in the room often hold the most power, because they know what it means to need help. And they never forget. "We keep going," Caleb said. "We help more people. We build more programs. We answer every call. And we never, ever give up on someone who needs us." "Even the angry ones?" James asked. Caleb smiled, especially the angry ones. The room erupted in applause, not for him, for what came next, for the work, for the people still waiting for help, for the ripples that would become waves. Caleb stayed until evening, listening to stories, meeting families, learning names. When he finally left, the sun was setting over the city. He stood outside the building, looking up at the sky. Somewhere out there, 2 14-year-old girls were helping someone else. Someone who didn't see them coming. Someone who needed them, just like he had. And someday, that person would help someone else, and the wave would keep spreading, one person at a time, one choice at a time, one refusal to give up at a time. Caleb pulled out his phone, looked at the last message from the twins. That's why it beats. He finally understood what they meant. His heart didn't beat just to keep him alive. It beat to remind him he was connected to every other beating heart, that his choices mattered, that his anger had hurt people, and his compassion could heal them. The twins had given him more than life. Falker, they'd given him purpose, and he would spend every remaining heartbeat honoring that gift. Caleb walked to his car. Behind him, the foundation building glowed with warm light. Inside, Maria and the team were already answering calls, already helping the next person, already spreading the wave. And somewhere far away, Alara and Nessa smiled, because they knew the angriest man they'd ever met had become the kindest. And his story would help thousands more remember that no one is too broken to be saved. No one is too lost to be found. And no one is too angry to learn how to love again. All it takes is someone who refuses to give up, even when it seems impossible. Especially then, if this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. I'll see you in the next story.